Imagine this, a vast, empty expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. It's December 1872. A merchant ship, the Dei Gratia, is cutting through the waves when its crew spots something strange on the horizon. Another vessel, drifting aimlessly. As they draw closer, they see its sails are partially set, but it's moving erratically, as if no one is at the helm. This is the story of the Mary Celeste, and what the crew of the Dei Gratia found that day would spark one of the most famous and unsettling maritime mysteries of all time. The boarding party from the Dei Gratia climbed onto the deck of the silent ship. A shiver must have run down their spines. There was an eerie quiet. No one was there. Not a single soul. "Okay," they called out. But only the creak of the ship's timbers and the rush of the waves answered. The ship's cargo of industrial alcohol was almost entirely intact. The personal belongings of the crew and passengers were still in their quarters, untouched. Food and water provisions were plentiful, enough to last for months. The ship itself was in good condition, perfectly seaworthy. But the 10 people who should have been on board Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, the 7 experienced crewmen were gone, vanished. What happened to them? Where did they go? Its only clue was a single missing lifeboat. The scene suggested a sudden but orderly evacuation. But why? Why would an experienced captain abandon a perfectly sound ship in the middle of the ocean? Let's rewind a bit. The Mary Celeste set sail from New York on a chilly November day in 1872. Its destination was Genoa, Italy. Captain Briggs was a respected and capable seaman, with his family and a hand-picked crew. The voyage was expected to be routine. The last entry in the ship's log was dated 10 days before its discovery. It gave no hint of trouble. It simply stopped. Everything after that moment is a complete blank. The official inquiry that followed was baffled. They examined every piece of evidence. The ship's sextant and chronometer were found on deck, suggesting the captain had recently been taking a navigational reading. Some water was found in the ship's hold, about a meter deep. But this was unusual for a wooden ship of that era, and certainly not enough to cause panic. There were no signs of a struggle, no bloodstains, no evidence of violence or mutiny. The ship was a ghost ship in the truest sense of vessel, without a crew, sailing on an empty sea. Over the years, theories have swirled around the Mary Celeste like a thick sea fog. Let's look at some of the most popular ones. One prominent theory revolves around the ship's cargo, 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol. The idea is that some of the barrels may have leaked, creating a buildup of volatile fumes in the hold. Perhaps a small, contained explosion occurred not big enough to damage the ship, but loud and frightening enough to make Captain Briggs fear a much larger, catastrophic blast was imminent. In a moment of panic, he could have ordered everyone into the lifeboat as a temporary precaution, intending to return to the ship once the danger had passed. But what if the line connecting the lifeboat to the Mary Celeste snapped? They would have been left adrift in a tiny boat at the mercy of the vast Atlantic, while their perfectly good ship sailed away from them. This theory explains the orderly evacuation and the missing lifeboat. However, when the cargo was inspected in Genoa, only 9 barrels were found to be empty, and there were no signs of fire or scorching anywhere on the ship. Then there's the weather. Could a freak storm or a waterspout have appeared suddenly, terrifying the crew into abandoning ship? The problem with this theory is the weather records for that time and place show no major storms. The seas were choppy, but nothing an experienced crew couldn't handle. The ship's log described fair weather, and again, the ship itself was not damaged in a way that would suggest a violent encounter with nature. What about a more sinister explanation? Pirates? Could the Mary Celeste have been attacked? It's a dramatic thought, but it doesn't fit the facts. The cargo was valuable, yet it was left behind. The personal effects of the crew, including money and other valuables, were untouched. There were no signs of a fight. Piracy in the North Atlantic was also extremely rare by the 1870s. So, the pirate theory, while exciting, has very little evidence to support it. The same goes for the idea of a mutiny. Captain Briggs had a reputation for being a fair and decent man, and the crew was experienced and professional. A mutiny seems highly unlikely, especially one that left no trace of violence. Another interesting, and perhaps more plausible, theory involves a navigational error. The ship's chronometer, a vital tool for calculating longitude, was found to be running slow. Captain Briggs might have also been worried about his cargo of alcohol. He might have seen land, or what he thought was land, on decided to abandon ship, believing they were close to safety. The Azores archipelago was nearby, but notorious for its unpredictable currents and weather. He misjudged his position and got into the lifeboat. But it relies on an experienced captain making a series of critical errors in judgment. Of course, the mystery has also attracted wilder speculation. Sea monsters, giant squid attacks, paranormal events, even alien abduction. These ideas have all been floated over the decades, fueled by fiction and folklore, but they are just that, stories. The unsettling truth of the Mary Celeste is that the real explanation is likely something more mundane, yet we'll never know for sure. It's the absence of answers that is so haunting. The fate of the Mary Celeste's crew remains unknown. No bodies were ever recovered. No wreckage from the lifeboat was ever found. They were simply erased from history, leaving behind a perfectly good ship as their silent, floating tombstone. The Mary Celeste itself was eventually sailed to Genoa by a salvage crew, repaired, and put back into service under new ownership, but its reputation followed it. It passed through 17 more owners before its last captain deliberately ran it aground in Haiti in an attempt to commit insurance fraud. Even in its final moments, the ship seemed to defy a simple end. It refused to sink quickly, as if clinging to its own mysterious history. Today, the name Mary Celeste is synonymous with ghost ships and unsolved mysteries. It's a story that reminds us of the power and the mystery of the sea, and of how quickly people can disappear without a trace. It's a puzzle with all the pieces laid out, except for the most important ones, the people. What happened in those final moments on deck? What fear or hope drove them into that small lifeboat? We can only guess. And as long as the ocean keeps its secrets, the fate of the crew of the Mary Celeste will remain one of history's most enduring and chilling enigmas. Thank you for watching. If you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries like this one, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the unknown. We'll see you in the next video.